Australia's economy just overtook South Korea, Mexico, Turkey, and Switzerland. Australia just did something economists said was impossible in 2024, and it happened so quietly that most people missed it entirely. In a single year, Australia's economy surpassed four massive, industrialized, globally connected nations: South Korea, Mexico, Turkey, and Switzerland. If you think you already know which countries dominate the world economy, this will change everything. Because here's the twist: this wasn't supposed to happen for another decade. Some analysts predicted 2035. Others said never. So what changed? Before we begin, please subscribe so you never miss any of my essential updates. Comment, "I subscribed," below, and I'll personally welcome you to our community. With that said, let's dive in. Australia's GDP just hit $1.789 trillion, bigger than South Korea's $1.713 trillion, and larger than Mexico's $1.789 trillion, but ranked higher by purchasing power. It dwarfed Switzerland's $0.938 trillion and Turkey's $1.344 trillion, according to the IMF World Economic Outlook database, April 2024, official, verified, and real. Now, think about this for a second. Australia has just 26 million people, less than Texas, Peru, or Ghana. Yet it's now the 12th largest economy on Earth. That's like your local cafe suddenly outselling Starbucks. It doesn't make sense, until you look at the three hidden forces that made this possible. And the third one is already reshaping global power in ways most people don't realize yet. Let's start with the least obvious reason: buried 200 feet underground. Meet Jin Ho Park, a 34-year-old engineer from Seoul working at Samsung. For years, he watched South Korea's economy hum like a well-oiled machine: semiconductors, cars, electronics. Everything seemed unstoppable until 2024, when global demand for chips cooled, car exports slowed, and GDP growth fell to 1.4%. Jin's bonuses dried up. His friends began talking about moving abroad. Now contrast that with Australia. While South Korea scrambled to reinvent itself, Australia was sitting on $387 billion in mineral exports, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 2024. Iron alone brought in $121 billion. Imagine every ton of red dirt pulled from the Pilbara, a vast, sun-scorched desert in Western Australia, funding hospitals, schools, and infrastructure across the continent. Here's where it gets wild. Australia supplies 52% of the world's lithium, the key ingredient in every electric vehicle battery, smartphone, and laptop. Countries that lack resources pay Australia's prices, and those prices have been sky-high. China needs it. Europe needs it. The US needs it. And Australia has it. But commodities are volatile. One price crash could sink everything. So how is Australia protecting itself? That's where the second reason gets interesting. Here's what most countries get wrong about immigration, and what Australia has been quietly perfecting for 30 years. Meet Maria Gonzalez, a 29-year-old software developer from Mexico City. In 2023, Maria tried to migrate to 4 countries. Canada rejected her, the US visa backlog was 7 years, Germany's language requirements were too strict, and the UK's salary threshold too high. Then she applied to Australia. Australia's points-based immigration system is ruthlessly efficient. It doesn't care about connections or backstories, only skills. Maria scored points for being under 35, 15, having a software engineering degree, 25, English fluency, 10, and work experience, 15. Her total, 82 out of 100, instant visa approval. In 2024 alone, Australia accepted 400,000 skilled migrants, according to the Department of Home Affairs. A Productivity Commission study from 2023 found that each skilled migrant adds $216,000 to GDP over 10 years. Multiply that by 400,000, and you get $86 billion in future economic value, from 1 year of immigration alone. Compare that to other countries. Mexico lost 1.2 million workers to emigration in 2024. Turkey saw a brain drain of 300,000 young professionals since 2020. Switzerland's strict quotas have limited high-skill migration for decades. Every plane landing in Sydney carries doctors, engineers, and entrepreneurs, human capital. If you're watching this from India, the Philippines, or South America, there's a 1 in 3 chance you know someone who's moved to Australia in the last 5 years. But immigration alone doesn't make a nation rich. You need something for all that talent to do. That's where the number one reason gets almost unfair. While the rest of the world panicked about China's slowdown, Australia made a bet now worth $200 billion. Let's rewind to 2020. China and Australia were locked in a bitter trade war. Beijing banned Australian wine, barley, and coal. Diplomatic relations collapsed. Analysts predicted Australia would suffer for years. Meet David Chung, 41, originally from Shanghai and now living in Sydney. A former Alibaba executive, he saw what was coming. "I knew China wasn't abandoning Australia," he said. It was negotiating, and Australia refused to blink. Fast forward to 2024. China lifts all trade restrictions. Australian exports to China surged 34% in 6 months, according to the Australian Trade Commission. China now buys $182 billion worth of Australian goods annually, from iron ore and lithium to wheat, beef, and gas. But here's the genius. Unlike South Korea, which sends 60% of exports to China and the US, Australia diversified. 32% of exports go to China, 18% to Japan, 14% to South Korea, 9% to India. Picture a chessboard where Australia has pieces on every corner. No single move can take him out. While Europe and the US try to decouple from China, Australia's playing 4D chess, trading with everyone but aligning with no one exclusively. Here's a jaw-dropping fact. Turkey's entire GDP is less than Australia's annual export revenue. But before you think Australia is unstoppable, here are 3 cracks forming beneath the surface. Danger 1. The housing crisis. The median home price in Sydney is now $1.2 million, according to CoreLogic, 2024. Young Australians are being priced out of their cities. Meet Emily, a 26-year-old nurse from Melbourne earning $68,000 a year. She can't afford a studio apartment. "I work in a hospital treating millionaires," she said, "but I'm one missed paycheck away from moving back in with my parents." She's not alone. Home ownership among Australians under 35 has dropped to 37%, the lowest in 40 years. Danger 2. The productivity paradox. Australia's GDP is growing, but GDP per capita growth was just 0.7%, according to the OECD, 2024. Translation: the nation is getting richer, but individual Australians aren't. Danger 3. Climate vulnerability. 2024 saw record droughts in Queensland and catastrophic floods in New South Wales, causing $8 billion in damages. The Climate Council of Australia warns agricultural output could drop 23% by 2030 if current trends continue. Those minerals in the ground mean nothing if droughts and fires make mining impossible. So why did South Korea, Mexico, Turkey, and Switzerland fall behind? It's not what you think. South Korea's economy is too concentrated. Samsung, Hyundai, and LG make up half the GDP. One bad quarter for Samsung, and the whole economy shivers. Mexico's narco violence cost $32 billion in lost GDP in 2024, according to the World Bank. Instability kills investment. Businesses flee. Talent leaves. Turkey faces runaway inflation, 64% in 2024. The lira collapsed, and middle-class savings evaporated overnight. You can't build an economy when people can't trust their money. Switzerland, for all its excellence, has just 8.7 million people. There's a growth ceiling. You can't scale past a certain point when your country is the size of Maryland. These aren't failing nations, they're facing structural challenges Australia simply doesn't have. But the big question remains, is Australia's rise sustainable, or is this a commodity bubble waiting to burst? Comment one word below, bubble or dynasty. And here's the real challenge. If you had to bet your life savings on one of these 5 economies over the next decade, Australia, South Korea, Mexico, Turkey, or Switzerland, which would you choose? Because here's what's wild, in 2025, India is projected to surpass them all. And that's what we'll break down next week. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss it. See you in the next video.